Hello and welcome to the Potty Mouth Preacher. I am Lisa Czak, your host, transforming women's minds, bodies, and souls, one F-bomb at a time. On today's episode, I have two very special guests talking all things marriage. Stay tuned. As always, we're going to start off by focusing inward. Go ahead and close your eyes if you're able to. Give me 3 deep cleansing breaths. Another one, really let it out. One more deep cleansing breath. I want you to picture that your device has a trap door on the back of it, and you are going to release all of your labels and responsibilities. All your labels as wife, mother, sister, daughter, employee, employer, CEO, student, friend. I know you got things going on inside your heart. I want you to release those too. Anything that's weighing you down. Anxiety, fear, doubt, shame, exhaustion, feeling drained. With each deep breath and exhale out anything that isn't going to serve you. Now take another deep cleansing breath in. Release it again. Slowly open up your eyes and welcome back. Okay, now we're going to talk about our celebrations. For me, I am celebrating that I'm starting the new year feeling very connected to my husband, close to my husband, connected to him in a way that we haven't been in 32 years after reading The 6 Pillars of Intimacy, which is the book that we're talking about today with the authors that wrote it. I am so excited to welcome my 2 special guests today, Tony and Alisa DiLorenzo, co-hosts of the top marriage podcast on Apple Podcasts, the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. They discuss with a worldwide audience sex, love, intimacy, commitment, marriage, and challenge their listeners to put their marriage first. Make the marriage a priority. They are also best-selling authors of The 6 Pillars of Intimacy. They have transformed countless of marriages, countless across the globe, including my own. My husband and I both read this book. I read it twice. The first time through the lens of my marriage, because I learned from Tony and Alisa that you need to put your marriage first. The second time I read it was through the lens of a podcast host so that I could best serve you. It is the most practical, powerful, the easiest way I have ever read of approaching how to look at your marriage through a different lens. So thank you so much, Tony and Alisa, for being on the Potty Mouth Preacher today and sharing your wisdom and guidance and your story with us and your precious time. I just want to tell you how grateful I am. And I know that my viewers are going to get so much out of this today. So let's jump right in.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to share just a little bit about your story and the best-selling book that you wrote, The 6 Pillars of Intimacy, why you wrote it. I think it's fascinating that a married couple wrote this book together. I just love the background story. And anything else you would like to share with my viewers before we jump into some questions that are very relatable to the women that I work with.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, writing a book with your spouse is an adventure.
Absolutely.
It's actually the 6th book we've written together. And this one, this is an interesting story because Tony and I had started sharing this concept, this framework of the 6 pillars of intimacy with our audience, going all the way back to August of 2020. And it was watching our audience through our own podcasts start to adopt the language, start to see breakthrough, talking about these different 6 pillars, that we started tossing around the idea, it might be time to write another book. And as we saw so many people, adopt this, get little breakthrough, and we're like, okay, well, what happens if we put something in their hands that is tangible, that they can, flip to whichever pillar of intimacy, they want to address, and they've got tools, they've got strategies. And so June of 2021, I got behind the computer. I am, in all of our books, I'm the primary writer.
Yeah.
I sit down first, I literally brain dump, get all the concepts out. And what was really special about this book is that Tony and I decided that I would be the primary writer for the entire book.
Yeah.
And then he came in, he has these little cameos at the end of each chapter around the 6 pillars of intimacy. And his cameos add so much depth, because I think it's rare in this day and age for there to be books for couples about marriage where you hear from both husband and wife. Instead of it's just like, okay, woman writer, I'm going to tell you, all you wives or husbands, how to do it. And you don't hear the counterbalance to that. And so it's always super valuable to me when Tony writes that counterbalance, when he gives the cameo, and he's like, well, let me tell you how it really was.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. And this book is a long time coming. We've been podcasting and behind our own microphones with the One Extraordinary Marriage Show for over 12 years. And we have an amazing family. We call them the One Family. And so the first 5 books we put out because we just felt like, hey, this needs to be shared. Like one of our books is called 7 Days of Sex. You know what I mean? What 7 Days of Sex Challenge. It's just because we talked about it. We've gone through it ourselves. And so we shared those. And then when this one came out, though, as Alisa said, it was the right time. We knew that the One Family was growing. They wanted to go deeper. And so when we put it out there in November of 2021, it's just been skyrocketing, hit bestseller in 7 categories, and continues to just sell and reach couples, which is our mission here, is to impact one marriage. And so every day we know that as a couple picks it up and starts reading it, just like yourself, it's just like, wow, I have some breakthrough around that, and I can have the extraordinary marriage I desire.
Yeah, you talked about the sex challenge. That was the first thing that caught my husband's attention. He said, we can do that.
We can do that.
We can do that.
Yeah.
And it was mind-blowing sex that we had. We've been married for 32 years. And just by reading this book together, he read it, and I actually read it twice. I read it, you guys will be proud of me. I read it once through the lens of my marriage, because I know you say marriage is our priority, right? So that I took off the podcaster hat and I just read it for my marriage, highlighted that in one color. And then I read it again so that I could, serve my audience best. And that's highlighted in a different color. But yeah, the sex challenge, which actually shocked me that he wanted to do that. That was like eye-opening.
Wow. Why was it eye-opening?
Yeah,
I'm curious.
I'm interested as well.
Because I didn't think he really desired that as much anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he thought I didn't really desire, like it was obviously like what you guys talk about, a lack of communication, right?
Yes. and a little bit of that ESP, you know what I mean? We can't read each other's minds, but you were trying to without actually verbalizing where you guys were in your sexual intimacy.
Yeah,
exactly. And, so my own personal story, I lost 80 pounds and he was really supportive during that time. But I remember a time when I didn't want sex, and that's like my women, what they're going through. They feel self-conscious about their body. They don't want to have sex with the lights on. They don't want to be naked in front of their husband. They say they run from like the shower to the bed real quick and they get under the covers and I remember that because I used to be like that. And I wish that I had this book when I was going through that. And I've already had 2 of my clients buy your book.
Oh,
and they're already seeing they're already seeing instantaneous, just like my husband and I, results, because both their husband and them are, listening to it.
Mhm.
But what I wanted to ask you is how would a woman, what would you suggest if she's feeling, like I just said, self-conscious about her body, she's overweight, and even if her husband is super supportive, right? Looking at the pillars of sexual intimacy and physical intimacy, how can they approach that as a couple?
Well, I think we have to add one more pillar in there, and that's the emotional intimacy pillar. I think
Mhm.
and I face a lot of challenges, and this sounds very similar to things that I face with my own coaching clients, where it's, what are the words that are being spoken? I actually told a client the other day, I said, I want you to practice this really powerful sentence. And she's like sitting on the edge of her seat. And she's like, okay, what is it? And I said, 2 words. So it won't be hard to memorize. And she said, okay, what is it? And I said, thank you, period. When your husband tells you that you look beautiful, I know that sometimes, we've all, and I don't use absolute statements all the time, but I think it's pretty safe to say at one point or another, everybody listening to this podcast episode has stood in front of a mirror and said, I don't like, and you fill in the blank.
So true.
And so, especially as women, we have to practice actually receiving compliments. And when our husbands take that step of emotional intimacy to say, babe, I see you. I love the way you look. You are my beautiful wife.
Mm-hmm.
Who you are, how you're put together, all of it, that's special to me. When we can actually look at our husbands and say, thank you, and not stick the butt on it and not stick the, well, not really, and minimize it and all the things. And we just say, thank you. Then those hands do reach out for the physical touch. And we can step into this place of saying, he sees me as a beautiful woman. Because I'll tell you, I was teased in middle school and high school. I had the glasses that turned, colors. I had, crazy, the transition one. And my parents thought it would be great for me to have it. So I didn't need sunglasses. Really bad haircuts, all the things. And growing up, I just always, and I've told this story many times, I considered myself an ugly duckling. Okay. Even in the early years of our marriage, like I look back on the pictures, I'm like, wow, honey, you had to put up with a lot. You're amazing. I'm like fine wine. I'm just getting better with the years. But about 10 years ago on our podcast, we rewrote our intro. We've been podcasting for almost 13 years. So this was pretty early on. But Tony reads the intro every week. The intro says, as written, says, this is Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, or
I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my
wife, Alisa. That's how it reads.
Written.
But since the first time he read it, he's called me beautiful.
Yep. So I'll go, I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Alisa. And I've said that for 10 years on the podcast, introing it, because I do the read at the beginning of every episode that we produce. And that has transformed how Alisa sees herself. Even in those tough times over the last 10 years when she didn't see herself as beautiful, I'll introduce her to folks and be like, hey, this is my beautiful wife, Alisa. And we've had these conversations a lot to the point of like, Alisa, I love you just the way you are. I do. And we've had to have some really heart-to-heart conversations because she would do the, well, yeah, but, and I'm like, there is no but. I love you for who you are. And as you step into that confidence and understanding where I see you, you're going to flourish. And it's taken time. And we've had numerous conversations and, hey, you need to go get your own help because I can't do that. I'm your husband. I'm not your counselor, your therapist, a coach. You need to go get some work on yourself. You need to go with somebody like yourself, Lisa, who can support you and encourage you, because that's not always my role as a husband. My role is to love on you and lavish you. And then there are times when you just got to step out and be around somebody like yourself to get the support.
Well, thank you. Yes, it's true, though. I remember when I was on that journey, before actually I was on that journey, and I was feeling really bad about myself. And my husband would do what you do, Tony. And he'd look at me with all sincerity, even though I was standing before him, 80 pounds heavier than when he first met me, and tell me I was the most beautiful woman he ever laid eyes on. But like you're talking about, I didn't believe it. Because I was looking in the mirror. There's something in the book that you wrote. I don't have the exact quote. I meant to write it down. But Alisa, you talk in the book about how if you want to get results, look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that really struck. I have chill just saying it. I still have chill saying it. I highlighted so many things in your book,
I
but
love it.
that's like what I share with my women. I say, it's about loving that woman in the mirror first and foremost, right?
Well, that woman in the mirror, she is actually pretty amazing,
Mhm.
right? She has the ability to do so many amazing things. And sometimes we just need to actually tell her,
Mm-hmm.
you're amazing. You've done hard things in the past.
Mhm.
You'll do hard things in the
Mm-hmm.
future. And this is a season where it might feel a little more challenging. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means, you know what, I love you and we're going to get through this together. And, I'm not opposed to standing in front of a mirror and giving yourself a pep talk, because sometimes it might feel like you're the only person giving yourself a pep talk, but do it anyway. Do it anyway, because here's the thing, when you've got that confidence starting to build, everything shifts. And it just is done in baby steps. It's why every chapter around the pillars talks about baby steps, because we're not trying to finish a marathon.
Mhm.
We're trying to take the first step.
Yeah, well, I had to keep reminding myself of that because I was putting pressure on Denny and I, like, we have to do everything before the interview.
Oh,
That's a
poor
bit,
Denny.
that's a bit much. Right? So he's thinking like, hey, this is 32 years of marriage.
Right.
Let's start from where we are.
Well, he's just thinking, can we start with that 7-day sex challenge and go from there?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
he zoned in on the 30-day sex challenge.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
He went for it. He's like 7 days. That's amateur. Let's go for 30 days.
I like a step.
Yeah.
I like a step.
Yeah, exactly. And also the other thing, I wanted to read a quote. This is one quote that I love that you wrote. Your body was designed to touch and to be touched.
Mhm.
Because I talk a lot about being, not becoming, but being the woman that God created you to be.
Yes.
And in marriage, right? That's what God wants us to enjoy sex with our spouse.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's
I mean,
what
there's
we're
a whole book in the Bible that is very explicit when you read it through the lens of, oh, this is talking about marriage.
exactly. And somewhere along the line, I feel like you have a baby, you gain weight. Like I hear women say this a lot, right? Or they just don't feel it anymore. So I'm so excited for my personal clients, the ones that are in my group, my babes, I call them.
Nice.
For me, this book, I want every woman couple, right? I work with women.
Yeah.
This is going to be my go-to gift for weddings.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we've been married. We were kids when we got married.
Mhm.
I was 21. He was 23.
Okay. Yeah, we know we were 22 and 23. So growing up together.
Yeah.
So I am curious, is that partly why you wrote this book? Is because you saw things in your own marriage that you actually worked on and fixed?
Oh, yeah. And you don't write a book like this if you haven't had your own form of dysfunction.
Yeah.
We, like we were just saying, we got married very young, 22 and 23, and a whole lot of love and a whole lot of, Disney princess dreams and, maybe a few little rom-coms thrown in there about how perfect this was going to be for the next 50 years.
Oh, yeah.
And then we go on our honeymoon and, from the beginning, well, you know what? We ended up snorkeling in diesel fuel on our honeymoon and couldn't get close to one another. So
We were snorkeling in the boat we were
explain, please.
Yeah. We were out and the boat happened to dump diesel fuel.
Where we were snorkeling.
I think by accident. We were young. We were 23 and 22. What do we know? But we were shimmering as we stepped out of the water. And then we spent the rest of our honeymoon unable to be close to one another because we both smelled so bad of diesel, and Alisa's long hair and everything would soaked it in.
Yeah.
And so we've gone through that. That's
a funny story.
That's a funny story. But I mean, we've come out of $50,000 in debt, just buried in it, lived under it for the first 5-6 years of our marriage. I brought pornography into our marriage and broke that 19 years ago when our oldest, who was it was a year old at the time. So we broke that. We lost a child in between our oldest and our youngest. And that was a really dark time for about 2 years in our marriage. We've lost everything throughout. We lost everything in the Great Recession and had to pull ourselves up and make it through, and had to humble ourselves when cars broke down and had to borrow old cars from friends living in San Diego and no AC in the middle of summer. And so we've had some tough times, and yet we do believe that the 6 pillars of intimacy, when you begin to take that framework and you put it into action in your own marriage, and you begin to look at each one of those, you can have the extraordinary marriage you desire. Now, you may not be where Alisa and Tony are right now, but we've been working on us for the last 15 years. And so you have to start somewhere, and it doesn't matter if you've been married 5 years or 32 years. And we have some folks in the one family who've been married 50 plus years. It's that you start, that you take that step and go, we're going to take some action, and we're going to get radical. Some of us need to get radical to make those changes.
Well, I absolutely love that. You talked a little bit about money issues, right? Investments, things just going bad.
Yeah.
And so there's a quote in your book: investing in yourself is the best investment you will ever make. It will not only improve your life, but the lives of those around you. And I am so huge on that. I have just now gotten into that in the last few years, like joining SPS, investing in myself, investing in my business. And Alisa, I know that you're also a coach, a marriage coach. And I was stalking your social media the last couple of days.
It's good. I love being stalked. It's fine.
In a good way. Okay. And there was something that you had said about, if you're unwilling to invest money in your marriage, right? And I hear that also, like with the women I work with, but they will say a lot of times to me, well, I want to invest in myself, right? I want to invest in coaching, invest in, getting in the best shape of my life, mind, body, and soul. But my husband is not on board. So how would you suggest a woman, going through that? How would she approach her husband? How could they work together as a couple?
Well, and this is really, it's looking at another pillar, right? It's looking at the financial intimacy pillar. And this is one where I think a lot of us growing up, we don't necessarily see our parents discuss money matters. We might see our parents argue about money, but never, or not necessarily how to handle it and how to have those conversations. But it's also, what does it look like for the two of you to get out of the place where you normally have your money conversations? Most couples, if you ask them, what do you guys usually talk about money? It's either going to be in the office, around the kitchen table, or we just don't. It's kind of the way that usually works. So it's getting out. Maybe you're having a walk. The two of you get out, get in nature, get him. And I would say this to women: get your man moving to have a conversation, right? When he sits down, there's a whole lot of male energy there that doesn't like to just be like, oh, we're going to talk now. That sounds like fun. No. Husbands, sons, get them moving. Expelling that energy is super healthy and beneficial for the relationship. And I think for a lot of women, it's not just saying, hey, I want to do this coaching, I want to do this program. I think it really goes to this place of saying, what's that vision that you want to cast for your relationship? Like I think about your programs and offering this and the support for women that are looking to lose weight and change who they are, not who they are, but how they show up in the world, right? And being in this place of saying, honey, here's why I want to do this. I've been struggling this for a really long time. And I know that it's impacted how I relate to you, how I relate to the kids, how I show up in our bedroom. And I want to regain my confidence. I want to get back to this place of knowing who I am and feeling really empowered to, I don't want to run from the shower to the bed and hide under the covers. I actually want to be able to like strut around our bedroom and own it. There are going to be very few men that are going to say, you know what? I don't think that's a good idea. Because he's thinking, are you crazy?
All day long.
And it's not just about the sexual intimacy, but it's about the confidence. And I think if we as women would get more into sharing our dreams with our husbands and sharing that vision and how this isn't just, whatever the dollar amount is, what does this look like for our future? How will I show up differently? How will we relate differently? What's the impact? It's not about the dollar amount. It's about the lasting impact of the investment.
I love that. That is a great, great way to look, especially the vision. It's always about the vision, right? The vision as a couple, the vision for yourself. And it's so funny that you said that about strutting, because I just had a woman like 3 days ago say to me, I just want to strut naked in front of my husband. Yes. That's my vision, Lisa.
Come on.
There you go.
Because that a lot of us carry that. We want to have that sexual confidence. as women. And if we're
Mhm.
struggling with body image, if we're struggling with weight, and I've struggled with being underweight and overweight. It's, I've done the yo-yo stuff. I know
Mhm.
that when I'm in either extreme, I don't feel confident.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
show up differently in my marriage when I'm not confident. And
Mhm.
that's the investment that their husbands are making. That's what I would tell the husbands. I'm like, look, she's making an investment in her confidence, and that will come back to you. Like,
In spades.
talk about that MasterCard. Was it MasterCard that had the commercial that would always end with priceless? This is priceless,
Yeah.
buddy. Just
So
invest.
true.
Just invest.
It's so true that, you say that. I've actually had clients that I coached where like they feel like their husbands are sabotaging them, bringing like it's right now it's sports season, right? Football. And
Oh, yeah.
so they're wanting to eat a certain way in alignment with their health and fitness goals, but their husband's bringing in their favorite foods,
Mhm.
pizza, beer, whatever their crack is, I call it. They just and or their husbands will say, well, you should just have willpower. Do you have any suggestions for women going through that right now, especially right now?
Yeah. And it's interesting that we're having this conversation today, because I was just coaching a couple yesterday, and he is actually the one on the weight loss journey, taking back control of his nutrition. And we were talking about what this is going to look like. I guess it was 2 days ago, because it was the 25th. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're doing this all the way up until like the new year. And I'm thinking Thanksgiving and
I
Christmas,
know.
traveling and all the football games,
Mhm.
and you're in Philadelphia. So the World Series. And I'm thinking, but it really comes back to this place of when the two of us got married, right? We made a decision that we were going to become one. And I think sometimes we actually need to revisit our wedding vows to say, what does becoming one look like? What does the I do look like? Because it wasn't just I do on that day. It was really stepping into this place of saying, I do support you
Mhm.
when you're doing something hard. It's that reminder of saying, hey, I know you want to bring the pizza and the wings and the double stuffed Oreos. Let's just not go regular here. Like, let's do it. And I know you want to have the beer and the pretzels and whatever it might be. I'm asking for this season that we do something differently. And I think sometimes too, if we can get into calling it a season, yes, will this very likely be a lifestyle change for her? Sure. But when it becomes a lifestyle change, it's a lot easier to make those decisions about saying no or making different choices. Beginning, this is a season.
Mhm. I
And
love
I'm
that.
trying to regain who I
Mhm.
am, coming back to this place of confidence and saying, I am asking for your help, not to punish you. I'm not trying to say we're never going to do pizza again ever in our entire lives, as long as we shall live. I'm saying I'm asking for your support, because how I'll show up and how we interact on the other side. I don't want to battle with you about food. I don't. This is not the tug of war I want to play in our marriage. Can you support me in the same way that the football team that you love so much supports one another when they're on the field and they're high-fiving and they're doing all the things to make themselves successful? Can we be that team
And
and
we've
do this
also
together?
Yeah.
we've also done in our own marriage, like we prepare 2 different meals.
Mhm.
We've done that over time in different seasons of our own
Mhm.
marriage, where one of us is really focusing in on that health and wellness, and the other one isn't so much. And so we've had to also learn to, how do we support one another when we're on different plans
Journeys, yeah.
and different journeys,
Mhm.
because we're not exactly the same, and we have different goals of where we're at. And so if Alisa wants to only eat chicken and rice, then I'm more than happy to support her by making that, even though I may be having, chicken wings deep
Mhm.
fried chicken wings that night. You know what I mean? And so it's still being able to support one another, even if you're on different journeys. And again, that goes back to this emotional intimacy and being able to just express more than just once. Because I think a lot of things happen like this. We want to do it. We share it with our spouse once. We think that they understand, and then we start, but we haven't had any other type of communication with them about it. And 30 days has already passed. Now we really haven't shared anything more. And so they're sort of like, what's going on now? And I don't know the plan, and I don't know where we're going. I don't know the vision. I don't know it's a season. And so we shut down maybe, or we explode. And I think it's that constant conversation that we are having with one another. Like, this is what's going on. Oh, I am starting. How do we do this so that you can support me, and yet you can still go have your pizza on Saturday because you're going to watch some college football and your beer? Cool. Like,
Yeah.
we can do that too.
If I could just add one thing to that, Approach your husbands and look for the win-win solution.
Absolutely.
How do we both win in this season instead of somebody's got to lose? What's the win-win? How can we both do this and feel really excited about the place that we're in right now?
I love that. I love that you're calling it a season, because a lifestyle change, it sounds so overwhelming.
That's big.
Right? It's like, how do you tackle that? But I love the fact, because it really is just a season and it's going to change, right? Like I see that with the women I work with as their bodies are changing, right? It's like they're entering a new season. My husband said, when I was on my weight loss journey of losing 80 pounds, he said he felt like he was sleeping with 52 women in 52 weeks.
Wow.
Because my body was changing so drastically. He couldn't wait to get me, in the bedroom to see what was happening.
It's like, what's next? What's next?
And like my sexual confidence went skyrocket. The more I would feel strong, right? I was lifting weights for the first time. I was doing a sit-up for the first time. I was the gym class loser before. And I just think like, it's so like, you're right. Like if you can have that communication, and if he wasn't, every week sort of checking in, like literally checking in on my body, see what's happening in a way that only he can. Right. That's why I think I love the sexual challenge too, because it's this act that you're only doing just the two of you.
Right. Yep.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. Like nobody else is involved in that. And so I just absolutely love that. So I see we're kind of winding down on time, unfortunately. I feel like I could sit and it's like having coffee. I can't wait to have my husband on and the four of us.
That's going to be fun.
I know it's going to be so fun. So what I would like to do is I would like to tell you, after reading the 6 Pillars of Intimacy, what my 3 big takeaways were. Yeah. And then I would like for you to share with my viewers that what are the 3 takeaways that you hope that if you had to pick just 3, right, what would be the 3 main takeaways for them? Okay. So I give soul work at the end of every episode. And so I'm going to incorporate soul work from your book into this episode. Okay. So my 3 takeaways is number 1, making your marriage priority. And looking back, we realized we were not doing that. We went through infertility treatments with our daughter and everything. And it was like, we just focused so much on her. We lost ourselves. We realized that after reading your book, by the way. Oh, wow. And so that's like a huge thing for us, making us priority again. The second thing for me is the communication just throughout the book. It's like, and what we were talking about today, right? Just keep talking to each other. It's not a one-time conversation. Keep having the conversations over and over again. And now I'm going to add, depending on the season. Yeah. And then the third thing is get your groove on, get in the bed, get under those sheets, get out the sex toys, get out all the positions, like have fun with each other. Our bodies are a wonderland. Touch, explore, just get your groove on again.
I love it. That's so good.
All right. So
are we doing 3 each or do 3 together?
Well, that depends on time.
Okay. I say 3 together.
Okay. 3 together.
Whatever you want.
Okay. So the first one, I agree 100% with you. If everyone reading this book understood that making your marriage a priority and the ripple effect that will have, Tony and I would be out of business. Mm-hmm. Like if I could just say,
we don't want that.
It is the truth. And we will continue to encourage literally people around the world to make their marriage a priority, because everything shifts when this relationship is healthy and whole. Mm-hmm. So that's one.
Out of the book, be intentional. Mm-hmm. You need to be intentional when you look at every single one of your pillars. You don't need to work on them all right now, like you guys were trying to, or you were trying to do, Lisa. You're like, we got to go on all of these. No, you can pick 1 or 2 of them. Yeah. And how are you going to be intentional around that pillar so you can strengthen it? Mm-hmm. And we give in the books how you can do that. There are little tips and ideas so that you can start taking action.
Mm-hmm. And I think the third thing, all of the chapters around the 6 pillars have a section called baby steps. Mm-hmm. And whether we're talking about losing weight or we're talking about creating transformation in the marriage, and I said it earlier in the interview, it's not about crossing the finish line. We're not trying to put our shoes on and, do 26 miles today. It's what is that very next baby step that you can take? Because just like making the transition from thinking lifestyle change to a season, if we're not trying to cross the finish line, we're just trying to take the next step. It's so much easier. And you will set yourselves up for success by going one baby step at a time.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm totally going to incorporate all that into the soul work.
Go for it.
And
Great.
so let us know how can they find you? I know, Alisa, you do marriage coaching. You guys have 6 books are on Amazon.
Yeah.
And there's a marriage quiz that we took also.
Okay. Yeah.
So what would you like to say to my viewers? How would you like them to find you?
I would say take the quiz.
Uh-huh.
6 Pillars of Intimacy quiz. You can find out what is your strongest pillar. Alisa and I believe in strength, and we want you to lead by strength. Where are you strong? And so you can take that at oneextraordinarymarriage.com/free quiz.
Mm-hmm.
Go there. You'll learn everything about what's going on around your 6 pillars. And then you can start diving in with us from there. You can find our podcast on your favorite podcast app, but we're everywhere at One Extraordinary Marriage. Find us. We're out here. We're here to encourage you, bring you hope, and see you have the extraordinary marriage you desire.
I love it. Thank you so much. I am so, so grateful. I'm grateful for the work you are doing. I feel like God is smiling down on you, saying, thank you. Jesus is saying, yes, somebody's out there rooting for marriage.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
So I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Thank
You want to end the way you normally end all your podcasts? And
Love you guys.
Perfect.